This week, I finished the transformation of this cramped, ugly kids' bedroom and had an absolute disaster with boxes. Hey everybody, Pete here from Northern Works. In the last episode, I made a start on transforming the boys' bedroom by building a loft bed. If you haven't seen that, make sure you go and check out that video after this one. I'll leave a link in the description below. This week, I wanted to add all of the finishing touches to really make that bedroom somewhere they can use and that they'll really love. So there were 4 things that I wanted to do this week. First, I wanted to add some submarine-style sidewalls so that nobody falls out. Secondly, I want to add a footbox to make sure that there's some extra storage space at the end of the bed. Third, we need to add a way of actually getting into the bed. And then finally, I want to add some extra storage to that back wall using some old Ikea boxes and a French cleat system. Let's get started. The bed really needs some safety rails, but I didn't just want to pop some low profile bars on there. The boys had asked for an underwater theme for their new room, so I hatched a plan to create a real feature out of the bed using oversized sidewalls with a submarine theme, complete with a porthole. I kept it really simple, cut the whole thing out of a sheet of 18mm plywood. You really don't need anything fancy to make more interesting shapes. I used a paint tin to mark out some rounded corners, and our fruit bowl acted as the porthole. Cutting the circles was pretty simple with a jigsaw. I switched out the stock blade for something with a higher tooth count though, just to make the cuts a lot neater. With the porthole, I also made this cross cut to clear out most of the waste before finishing the hole off. Once everything was sanded, I got one of the apprentices to give it a couple of coats of satin wood paint. I mean, it is their bedroom after all. Fitting it was fairly simple too. The only sketchy part was getting everything lined up flush with the bed rails. But once everything was clamped in place, I could slip round the back and just screw the whole thing in. There's probably a calculator somewhere online that will tell you exactly how many screws to use for a given weight, but I couldn't find anything like that, so I just slammed in about 300 just to make sure it was safe. Once that second rail was in, it was time to do something about this big gap at the foot of the bed. Rather than just having a blank step, I wanted to use the space at the end to create a little extra storage for the boys' copies of the New Yorker magazine and their necktie collection. But seeing as they'll probably just fill it with football magazines and neither of them wears a tie, I settled on a fairly simple and robust footbox that could take the weight of someone standing on it as they got into the bed. I think DIY projects like these are a great excuse to try something new, and I really wanted to make the box using miter joints. So once I'd measured everything out, I set my circular saw to a 45-degree angle using the speed square as a reference, and then cut everything to length using that. Then I used the painter's tape glue up method to stick it all together. After cutting some box lids, I left the whole thing to dry overnight. The problem with using the circular saw is that it just isn't accurate enough to cut miters properly. As a DIYer, when we're faced with situations like this one, I find it's really tempting just to plow on, when things get a bit janky. We're usually fitting projects around family, around work, other commitments, so it's a really tough decision to go back a few steps and start again to get a better finish. But that's one of the reasons I started this channel, was to make better decisions and make better pieces that are more refined, more built to last, rather than take the quick, cheap option. Except for today. Today I decided to just plough on and fitted the dividers into a box I knew I wasn't happy with and I knew wasn't even square. I was fitting the project in around other commitments, but moments like this have a habit of coming back to haunt you in the end. Once those were in, I drilled handles into the lids using a spade bit. I marked up the lids for hinges, did the same on the box, which allowed me to create recesses. To save a bit more time, I decided to use the router rather than chisels. And this is where that time-saving instinct really bit me hard. Or rather, it bit the plywood and ripped out huge chunks. I couldn't let this one go. I knew I had to replace that side of the box. Luckily, I still had some scrap, which was the right length, so I could just trim that to the right width using the jigsaw and... oh, bloody hell. I genuinely don't know how I managed to properly cock this cut up. I just deviated completely off the line. I was so frustrated with myself. I knew I was rushing this whole build, and the lack of care had ruined all of my hard work. There's only one thing that could save me now. I needed a montage. This second box is so much better than that other one. Yeah, sure, it's a simpler joint, but the screws will all be hidden anyway, and this box is actually square. I decided to take a slightly different approach to the hinges too, and started by screwing them into place on the lids. These screws that came with the hinges was super low quality. I lost 2 screw heads before I switched to my own stock. Once I'd checked the fit, I gave everything a pass with a round over edge, just to reduce any possible injuries from sharp edges in the night, and then I finished everything with the same paints as the rest of the bed, which added another little pop of colour. When I came back to assemble everything, I found I really wasn't happy with the fit of the lids. The hinges couldn't close fully, so I added recesses, this time using chisels to keep everything neat and tear out free. This was a much longer build than it needed to be, but the final result was exactly what I'd been aiming for. Now, how will anyone actually get into this bed? The boys had asked specifically not to have a ladder, so originally I drew up plans for a set of boxes that would act as steps. On second thought though, I didn't like how much material I'd need to use, especially as they already had some perfectly good Ikea box shelves, and I really didn't want to throw those away. In the end, the eldest one had a bright idea to use the chest of drawers as a step, and I could just build one slightly larger box as a step up onto that. After the comedy of the footbox, I decided to go simple from the start with this one, and cut straight edge panels and used good old glue and screw joinery. Once the glue had dried, I came back and replaced the screws on the top panel with dowels. This is a really simple way to give everything a neater finish on show faces. Just drill out the hole, glue in a dowel and trim off the excess. The outside faces got a coat of paint to finish things off. Simple, effective. To finish off the room, I wanted to create some shelves that would raise the rest of their things off the floor. We had some smaller Ikea boxes that were already in the room, so I wanted to reuse those and attach them to the wall using a French cleat to create a modular system that we could add to and move around in the future. If you're not familiar with it, a simple French cleat just uses two pieces of material with a matching 45-degree edge that then interlock. To get them straight to the wall, I drilled pilot holes in the bracket piece, then used a level and the same pilot bit to mark into the actual wall. I could then drill holes into the brick for plugs and attach the brackets. These boxes have super thin walls, so I drilled pilots through the hangers before driving the screws. This prevents the sides from exploding when a screw goes in. Once those are attached, they just slot into the brackets and hang on the wall. Super simple. Now I should probably do something about those curtains. I was hyped when the bed went in, but now everything's in, I'm even more hyped. Like, it's completely transformed. The amount of space, the colour, and the boys absolutely love it, which is brilliant. If you've watched any of my other videos, then you'll know that this year I've challenged myself to consume less and to create more. And a big part of that is really upping the level of refinement and finesse and making the best use of whatever materials I do buy. So I was pretty bummed about that foot box when I first made it, and it just wasn't up to the standard that I kind of wanted for myself. But in the end, actually, I'm really pleased that I did start again, that I took the time, that I put into practice all of the good things that I've been trying to do, and the end result is like way better than what I would have had anyway. I'm really, really pleased with how everything's turned out. If you like this transformation, if you've enjoyed following along, please consider subscribing. I've got tons more projects lined up, including next I've got to make a set of garden gates to keep our new puppy from escaping. So if that's something you like the sound of, then make sure you subscribe so you don't miss it. But as ever, the thing that I'd love the most is for you to comment down below. I'd really love to hear from you. You know, what are some of your biggest project disasters? If you're juggling commitments like I am, then I'm sure you've got a few to share. Or have you got some time-saving tips, things that actually work to save you time on the projects that you are doing? Whatever you choose to say, it'd be great to say hi.